The recording of my smartwatch played back a conversation I never had. My own voice, clear as day, was arguing with my girlfriend Sarah about a trip to Italy we had never even planned. "I told you, I can't take the time off." My voice snapped, laced with a venom I'd never used with her. "Work is just too crazy right now." Sarah's recorded voice replied, trembling with tears.
"It's always too crazy, Alex. It's always the work."
But we hadn't had this fight. We had spent that evening curled up on the sofa, peacefully watching a documentary about deep-sea creatures. That was the moment I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that something was fundamentally, terrifyingly broken. And it wasn't the watch. It was reality itself. This is a new channel with incredible stories every day. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Let me take you back to the beginning, before my world started to fray at the edges. My name is Alex. I'm 28 years old, and my entire life revolves around data. I'm a data analyst for a mid-sized tech firm, and I love my job. I love finding patterns in the chaos, turning millions of meaningless data points into a clear, concise, predictable story. Spreadsheets are my comfort zone. Logic is my religion. If I can't measure it, graph it, or build a predictive model for it, it might as well not exist. My passion for data bled into my personal life, too. I tracked my finances, my diet, my workout routines, my sleep cycles. To me, it wasn't obsessive. It was just efficient. It was control. It was knowing where you stood. That's why, when the new Chronos X smartwatch came out, I had to have it. It wasn't just a gadget. It was the ultimate life logging tool. It promised the most accurate biometric tracking on the market: heart rate, sleep stages, blood oxygen, stress levels, GPS, everything. It was designed to create a perfect, quantifiable mirror of your life. And for a while, it did. The first few weeks were a data nerd's dream. The sleek, black circle on my wrist felt like a part of me. I'd wake up and immediately check my sleep score, feeling a sense of accomplishment if I hit my target for deep sleep. I'd optimize my jogging route based on the GPS and heart rate zone data. Sarah would laugh at me, ruffling my hair as I stared intently at a graph of my daily step count.
"You're going to optimize all the fun out of life, you know that?"
She'd tease, but she understood. She was the opposite of me, an artist, spontaneous and emotional, but our differences worked. She was the beautiful, unpredictable color in my black and white world of numbers. We were happy, we were stable, we were predictable. And my watch confirmed it. My resting heart rate was low, my stress levels were minimal. The data said I was content, therefore I was. The first anomaly was so small, I almost missed it. I'd been at my desk all day, buried in code. I hadn't even gotten up for lunch. Yet when I checked my stats that evening, the watch claimed I had walked over 12,000 steps. I frowned. That can't be right. I muttered, scrolling through the hourly breakdown. It showed a huge spike of activity around 1 p.m., the very time I was glued to my chair during a video conference. Weird, I thought. Must be a sensor calibration issue. A bug. I reported it through the app and forgot about it. A week later, another glitch. I woke up after a terrible night's sleep, tossing and turning for hours, yet the watch greeted me with a cheerful notification. "Excellent sleep. You got 3.5 hours of deep sleep." I knew for a fact I hadn't. I felt exhausted, my head thick with fatigue. Again, I dismissed it. Software isn't perfect. Beta testing has its quirks. These were just minor bugs in an otherwise perfect system. They were explainable. They fit within the logical framework of my world. But then the glitches started to become personal. I was sitting in the living room one Sunday afternoon reading a book. The house was quiet, Sarah was out with friends, and I was completely relaxed. Suddenly, the watch buzzed violently on my wrist. I glanced down. A bright red warning flashed on the screen. "High heart rate detected. Your heart rate has exceeded 160 BPM while inactive." I froze. I could feel my own pulse, a slow, steady, calm rhythm in my chest. I placed 2 fingers on my neck. Thump, thump, thump. It was probably around 60 BPM, my usual resting rate. But the watch insisted I was in the middle of a panic attack or a strenuous workout. For a full 10 minutes, it tracked a phantom tachycardia, a frantic heartbeat that simply wasn't happening in my body. A cold sliver of fear pierced my data-driven certainty. This wasn't a simple miscalculation of steps. This was the watch telling me my physical state was something other than what I was experiencing. It was the first direct contradiction between my reality and the one on my wrist. That night I told Sarah about it. She listened patiently, her brow furrowed with concern.
That's so strange.
She said, taking my wrist and looking at the watch as if it were a strange insect.
Maybe it's faulty, Alex. You should send it back.
But the rest of the data is perfect. I argued, more to convince myself than her. The software is state-of-the-art. It makes no sense for one sensor to be so wildly inaccurate.
Well, what else could it be?
She asked, her voice gentle.
It's not like you have a secret, super-fast heart.
I laughed, but it was hollow. The unease didn't go away. I started keeping a log. A spreadsheet, of course. I documented every single anomaly, no matter how small. A GPS log that showed me taking a 10-minute trip to a park across town while I was verifiably at my desk. Ambient noise levels suggesting I was in a crowded bar when I was home alone. Each entry was a tiny crack in the foundation of my logical world. Sarah thought I was becoming obsessed, and maybe I was, but I had to find the pattern. I had to make it make sense. I was starting to question my own sanity. Sarah thought it was a technical issue, but the glitches felt personal. They were too specific. What would you have done at this point? Would you have thrown the watch away, or would you have dug deeper, no matter the cost? Let me know in the comments. The breaking point, the moment that shattered my comfortable reality into a million pieces, came a few weeks later. It was the night of the phantom argument. I had enabled a feature on the watch called Audio Journal, which would periodically record short snippets of ambient sound to help you recapture moments from your day. It felt a little invasive, but the data lover in me couldn't resist. That evening, Sarah and I had a lovely, quiet dinner. We talked about a new gallery she wanted to visit and a silly movie we'd watched the night before. It was a perfect, normal evening. Later, as I was getting ready for bed, I was idly scrolling through the watch's daily summary. I saw an audio snippet logged during dinner, and, out of curiosity, I tapped play. I expected to hear the murmur of our pleasant conversation, the clinking of our forks. Instead, my own voice filled the silence of the bedroom, sharp and angry. I told you, I can't take the time off. The recorded me was practically shouting. Work is just too crazy right now. My blood ran cold. I heard Sarah's voice, thick with emotion.
It's always too crazy, Alex. It's always the work. That trip was important to me. To us.
The argument continued. A bitter, painful exchange about priorities, about me being distant, about a trip to Italy that we had never, ever discussed. I stood there, frozen, listening to a ghost of a life I wasn't living. It was my voice, my accent, my cadence. It was her voice, her unique intonation. But it was a conversation from a nightmare.
Sarah?
I called out, my own voice trembling. She came out of the bathroom, toweling her hair.
What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost.
Worse.
I whispered and played her the recording. She listened, her eyes widening in disbelief, then horror. She sank onto the edge of the bed, her face pale.
What is that?
She breathed. That's not us. We didn't say any of that. We were talking about the Henderson exhibit.
I know,
I said, my mind racing, trying to find a logical explanation. Hacking? A cross signal? A prank? But nothing made sense. The audio quality was perfect. It was recorded from the microphone on my wrist. It had captured a moment that had happened, and yet hadn't. It wasn't a malfunction. I knew it in my gut. The watch wasn't broken. It was a window. It was recording a different version of my life. A parallel life, where Sarah and I weren't happy. A life where I was a worse version of myself. A version that would let my work consume me and break her heart. The realization was dizzying. Suddenly, all the other glitches clicked into place. The extra steps? The other me was more active. The phantom heart rate spike? The other me was stressed, anxious, unhappy. The trip to the park? The other me had stepped out for a desperate breath of fresh air. I wasn't just wearing a watch. I was wearing a constant, real-time feed from an alternate reality. The life of Alex Prime, streaming directly to my wrist. The discovery changed everything. My obsession morphed into a morbid, terrified fascination. I'd check the watch constantly, not for my data, but for time. Semanas. I started to piece together the life of this other Alex. He seemed to work longer hours than I did. His stress levels were consistently high. His sleep was terrible. The audio snippets were the most painful. I'd hear him having tense phone calls with his boss. I heard him and Sarah arguing about money. I heard him sighing, long and heavy, when he was alone. I was living my life and watching his unravel. It was a strange, disembodying experience. When I had a good day, I'd feel a pang of guilt, checking the watch to see that he was having a miserable one. When Sarah and I would laugh together, I'd find myself glancing at my wrist, wondering if he and his Sarah were fighting. Our happiness felt fragile, haunted by the ghost of their misery. Sarah couldn't handle it.
You have to get rid of it, Alex.
She pleaded one night, her eyes filled with tears. It's like you're inviting a curse into our home. You're not even here with me anymore. You're always there with them. She was right. I was becoming a ghost in my own life, obsessed with the phantom one. But I couldn't stop. It was a horrifying, addictive train wreck, and I couldn't look away. How could you, when you had proof that another you existed? How could you just turn it off? Have you ever felt so compelled by something you knew was bad for you? It felt like that, magnified 1,000 times. I promised Sarah I would stop checking it so much, but it was a lie. The watch was a part of me now. Its data was more real, more compelling than the air I was breathing. Then came the day that broke me completely. It was a Tuesday in October. For me, it was just a normal, gray autumn day. But for the watch, it was an anniversary. A notification popped up that morning, not for me, but for him. A calendar event, synced from his phone to his watch. The title made my breath catch in my throat. Dad's 60th birthday dinner, 7 p.m. My heart stopped. My dad wasn't 60. My dad would never be 60. He had died 3 years ago in a sudden, senseless car accident. He was 57. The grief was a scar on my heart that had never fully healed. I carried a profound guilt about our last conversation, a stupid argument over something I can't even remember now. I never got to say goodbye. I stared at the notification, my hands shaking. This couldn't be real. It had to be a mistake, a database error, a cruel, meaningless coincidence. With a trembling finger, I navigated to the watch's health app. The Chronos X had a feature where you could link family members to share health data. I had never used it, but he had. I tapped on the Family tab, and there it was. A linked profile. The name read John Miller, my dad's name, and next to it, a single, impossible, life-shattering piece of data. Live heart rate, 72 BPM. I think I stopped breathing. 72 beats per minute. A calm, steady, living heartbeat. My father's heartbeat. It was right there, on my wrist. A real-time data stream from a dead man. In his reality, the accident never happened. In his world, my dad was alive. He was turning 60 today, and the other Alex was going to have dinner with him. He would get to see him, talk to him, maybe hug him. All the things I would give anything in the world, to be able to do one more time. A wave of emotion so powerful it buckled my knees crashed over me. It was a tidal wave of grief, jealousy, longing, and a terrifying, fragile hope. The watch face flickered, showing me one of his photo albums. And there he was. A recent picture. The other Alex, grinning, with his arm around our dad. Dad looked older, a few more gray hairs at his temples, but he was smiling. He was alive. The world, as I knew it, had fractured, and this little device on my wrist was the only window into a life I could have had. If you're finding this story as mind-bending as I did, please consider subscribing. It helps a lot. That image broke me. I spent the rest of the day in a fog, a walking zombie. At work, I stared at spreadsheets, but the numbers were just meaningless squiggles. All I could see was my dad's face. All I could feel was that steady, 72 beats per minute. Sarah came home to find me sitting in the dark, just staring at the watch. She didn't even have to ask. She saw the look on my face and knew it had shown me something terrible. I told her. I whispered the words.
My dad. He's alive over there.
She just held me as I fell apart, sobbing for a man who was both alive and dead. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched the watch. I watched his heart rate climb slightly as he presumably got ready for the dinner. I saw his GPS log him traveling to a familiar address, my parents' house. I imagined the scene. The warm lights, the smell of my mom's cooking, the sound of my dad's booming laugh. I saw his stress level drop, replaced by a data marker for joy. He was happy. He was with our father. And I was here, in the dark, in a reality that suddenly felt like a cheap, broken copy. The watch had started as a tool for control, to quantify my life. Now, it was a tool of torture, quantifying a life that was better, a life that was whole, in a way mine could never be again. I knew I had a choice to make. I could keep the watch. I could live this half-life, a voyeur to my own happier ghost. I could watch him celebrate birthdays, holidays, moments I would never have. I could let it poison every good thing in my own life, forever comparing it to the what if. Or I could end it. I could close the window. The next morning, I took the watch off. It felt unnaturally light in my hand. It was just a small circle of glass and metal, but it held entire worlds. I walked out of the apartment, not saying a word to Sarah. I walked for what felt like hours, until I found myself standing on a pedestrian bridge overlooking a river. I stood there, the cool metal of the watch in my palm. The screen was still on, showing me his data. His heart rate was back to a resting rhythm. He was probably asleep now, content after a night with his family. With our family. The temptation to just put it back on was immense. It was a connection, however painful, to my dad. It was proof that somewhere in the vast, terrifying expanse of existence, he was okay. But then I looked at my own hands, my own life. Sarah, our apartment, my reality. It was flawed. It was painful. It was missing a piece I could never get back. But it was mine. With a final, ragged breath, I drew my arm back and I threw the watch as hard as I could. It arced through the gray morning air, a tiny black speck against the sky, before hitting the water with a small, insignificant splash. And then it was gone. The connection was severed. The screen was dark. The other Alex and my living father were gone. The silence on my wrist was deafening. I had chosen my reality, this one, with all its flaws and heartaches. But sometimes, in the dead of night, when the house is quiet, I swear I can still feel a phantom vibration on my wrist. I wonder, did I just close a window? Or did I kill a version of myself? A version where my dad was waiting for me to call? I live with that question every single day. Have you ever experienced a glitch in the matrix? Something you just couldn't explain? Share your thoughts or theories in the comments. I read all of them.